Everybody. All right. Good morning, everybody. Jim Coventry from RotoWire here, going through the Week 7 sit stream, and answer your questions, give you the what and the why as well here. Got on YouTube, we're on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram. The questions on YouTube and Twitter we'll see. The ones on Insta we won't. Get to hopefully everybody today as we get ready for those Week 7 lineup questions. Jeremy Fowler's reporting Keenan Allen's been trending positive this week. We still don't know if he's going to play. Let's get to some questions here and try to move through here. All right, SN, you need 2 running backs in a flex week 7, 10 team PPR. Damian Pierce is going to be a must start. Stevens is going to probably split work with Damian Harris, who's expected back. Brandon Cooks has not been playing great. Hopefully out of the bye, he gets a few more targets, but Nico Collins is a part of that. Doubs is always going to be hit or miss. They throw him the ball deep on occasion, but the production has not been there consistently. Brian Robinson has a great matchup against the Packers. We have to see what his workload will be like. Montgomery has a high work. He'll see at least 75% of the snaps, always making him a great floor play. Pacheco is a tough matchup. He's in for his pass protection. He should get 10 to 12 carries. And then Foreman. All right, so, wow, that's a lot of names. So I'll tell you all those. Pierce is a must start. And Montgomery is your floor play. And of the remaining ones, Foreman probably gets a lot of work, so he probably has the highest floor of the 3. If you want a boom bust for the third one, I think Pacheco has boom bust value. Stevenson has boom bust value. The receivers have been tough to trust because they're not getting the production to the volume. And I don't know that Robinson's going to get enough work on his own. So I'm going to say Pierce and Montgomery for sure. Foreman is probably your safest of the 3 because I think he gets a lot of work. But Pacheco's your boom bust if he breaks a big play. Got an Insta question. Hunter, Damian Harris. You know what? Damian Harris is supposed to be healthy. Bears matchup is not problematic. Harris was a game time decision last week. Hunt just has not been putting up the fantasy numbers you like. The matchup is not bad, but I'm going to go with Harris because he does get work around the goal line. Hunt has just been a little too risky there. Eric Royo, you need 2 running backs, Hill, Wilson, or Pollard. You know what, Pollard, I think in an easy matchup, even at 8 touches, he could get it done because Detroit just hemorrhages yards to running backs through the running and through the air. Then it leaves with the Wilson or Hill. I think Wilson is your floor play. I think he gets 8 to 10 carries in this game, which against Kansas City, that's not bad. I think Justice Hill's an interesting upside play because I don't know how much work Edwards is going to get, but here's what I do know. Justice Hill, the last 2 games he was active, Kenyon Drake was inactive. Now, they might all 3 be active, but I believe Hill's the number 2. So I go Pollard for sure. I go Wilson for floor. But Hill's looked really good in the last 2 games he played. So I think Hill is your boom bust play there. Wilson probably gets you, 8 points, but Hill could get you 4 or 15. So I think he's more of the volatile play. And then I got another instant question, Pacheco or Etienne. I'm going to say Etienne. Etienne's starting to look explosive. I don't like the matchup for Pacheco. Andy Reid said the pass pro has been really good. So I think ultimately, I think they get similar touches, but Etienne is been coming on as a runner and a receiver, and I think he's on the cusp of breaking out here. All right, Eric, you've got Drake or Pacheco. I think Justice Hill is ahead of Drake. I think Gus Edwards is involved. I think Drake is the third man of a 3-man committee. I do like Pacheco better here because I think it's 10 to 12 carries. And again, with his speed, he could break some. It's a tough matchup, but I would probably go him. All right, B. Ali, is it Taylor, Stevenson, Walker, or Pierce? So the only reason I'm going to say Stevenson is because Damian Harris is active, and we just know they mess with the touches a lot. And the other 3, I think they all have secure floor workloads, whereas Stevenson is just more problematic. If Harris was out, it'd be a different question, but I think I said Harris for that reason. Freiermuth or Henry. Freiermuth has been a really involved part of the offense, and that is where we start to consider his role. Henry's had 2 great games in a row, but those are with Bailey Zappi. I wonder if it's a Zappi thing because with Mac Jones, Henry was not getting anything done this year. And against the Bears, I don't know how much they need him. So I'm going to say Freiermuth because he seems to be a reliable part of that offense each week. Got an instant question, Pierce or Breece Hall? Breece Hall is a terrible matchup. Pierce is a good one. Wow, that's a good problem to have. I think Pierce's matchup in Houston keeps games close, and Pierce has actually been seeing work in negative game script. I do think that Denver has the ability to slow down Hall quite a bit. It is a bad matchup. This is 52 to 48. 52 Pierce, 48 Hall. If you have a gut feel, go with it. And Johnny, you've got wide receiver 3. Should you start Josh Reynolds, Mooney, or Nico Collins? So apparently Josh Reynolds is not 100%. Now, last week he wasn't. He went off. But Dallas is bringing a lot of heat. And those outside corners, that's who Reynolds is going to see. So to me, Reynolds, now Mooney, of course, they're playing New England. But you know what? I think New England tries to take the run away. I don't think they're worried about Justin Fields beating them. So I don't think they put special attention on Mooney. So I think Mooney is going to have fine. Nico Collins has had a floor in the last 4 weeks. So of the 3, I think I'm benching Reynolds. He had a great game. I know, a great game last week. But Dallas is a different beast. So to me, I'm sitting Reynolds for that reason. That's my rationale behind it. Hopefully that helps you make your best decision. Fishtail, you got Murray or Algier. So Latavius Murray, it's not a good matchup. And I don't trust anything from Nathaniel Hackett week to week. Algier, you know what? Algier is probably going to be fine because they're playing Cincinnati. Cincinnati's down. DJ Reader and Logan Wilson, 2 of their front 7 are out. Their backup left tackle's out too on defense. And he's going to have a floor for you. And they put so many people in the blocking for extra tight ends, extra running backs. So I think Algier is safer than Murray. And I don't know how much upside Murray actually has because the Jets have been a good above average run defense. And then Sutton or Dillon. I mean, so I think Sutton's going to see a lot of Sauce Gardner. I could be wrong, but I think that's the only threat. I don't think anybody's worried about Jerry Jeudy right now. And so I think the limitation at quarterback with Rippon, not that they weren't limited with Russ, but Russ was at least mostly getting Sutton the ball. And Dillon has a good, not a great matchup, but Dillon wasn't good last week. But I think overall, I think Dillon's a little bit safer here, and neither of them are safe. I just worry about Sauce Gardner being on Sutton and Rippon saying, well, I can't throw there. He's not open. So that'd be my thought there. Dev, you've got sit one of the following: Walker, Stevenson, Damian Pierce, McCaffrey. So McCaffrey, I know, is going to be on limited count, but sometimes that goes by the wayside. And I'm not even convinced they're going to use him as a running back. They might use him as a receiver. And they got a package of plays for him. And Kansas City, I mean, my God, McCaffrey can get 4 touches, and one of them could be a touchdown, one could be. So I can't sit McCaffrey. I just cannot sit him. Stevenson, though, because Damian Harris is active, I think that's the one we're sitting because Damian Harris just gets a lot of that work. And we know Walker is going to see most of the work, Pierce see most of the work. And I just can't sit McCaffrey because of that upside. And if he gets hot and the plays are working, they might just keep rolling to him. And so I just can't bench Christian McCaffrey, you know? And then, John, can you start Aaron Jones? No, you know what, Jones, I mean, I want to say he had 144-yard game, but he had an 80 and 110 in the last 3. So he's got a floor that's decent, and Washington is a matchup they should be able to exploit. I mean, their offense is bad, but I think you start Aaron Jones with relative confidence. You got a floor, and he does have the ceiling games, and that's the reason you can't bench him, because those games come out of nowhere, and he comes up with a 30-point game, and you're like, can't have him on your bench. On Insta, I got a question from Ricardo: Curtis Samuel or Nico Collins? It's a good question. We don't really know how Taylor Heineke is going to mesh with Samuel, and Samuel's been trending down the last couple weeks. Collins has been putting up a floor where he's getting at least 50 yards in 3 of the last 4 games, and the Raiders are not a scary matchup. They're probably going to have to throw a bit, and Davis Mills is trusting Collins. So I think with the uncertainty at quarterback, not knowing where Heineke's going to go, I think Collins, who's been trending well, and he could be on the verge of a breakout as well, I think I'm going Collins 55 to 45%. As always, got a gut feel. Go with that. Johnny, Pickens, Juju, Wandale, or Kirk need one. Kirk's struggling because teams are compressing the defense because they realize that there's no explosive receivers on Jacksonville. So that's been his problem. The Giants, to me, are not a scary matchup for Kirk, though. Wandale, we don't know what the snap share is going to be, the participation. And ultimately, though, it's a good matchup for him if they're going to get him the ball. Juju looked good last week, and he was on his fewest targets. He was getting 8 targets a game. And then now here's the thing, and this is for everybody. Chiefs last year saw a ton of zone. This year they're seeing the most man in the league because no Tyreek Hill and nobody fears the receivers. But the 49ers are injured at corner. You know, Mosley's down for the season. We know that Charvarius Ward's not 100%. Jimmy Ward, the safety's coming back from an injury, a broken hand. He's got a cast on it. So I think Juju is the best floor play of this group. I like Pickens as the boom bust play, though. Miami, Xavier Howard's playing at less than 100% if he plays, and Miami has been giving it up in the passing game. And I know Miami will blitz, and that's the thing. The downfield game of Pickens could show. That's why Pickens is a boom bust guy, because he has opportunity to make big plays. Juju's your safe play. I think if you got to go swing for defense, and then go Pickens, knowing you could go splat, but it also could go boom. We got another one on Insta. We got an Insta question. Frosty Beverage, Myers, Judy, or Duvernay. Myers seems healthy. They're going to throw to that short area. He's not going to draw Jalen Johnson of the Bears, who's an outside corner. Judy, it's very hard to trust with Rippon. I think it's a low-scoring game with the Jets, so I think both teams can lean into the running game a bit more. With Rashad Bateman back, Duvernay becomes more, and I know he had touchdowns with him and with Bateman in Atlanta, I get that, but Duvernay, he's not he surprised teams the first couple of weeks, and now teams are actually saying, oh, okay, we got to actually put somebody near him. So I think Myers is your play. I think he has the best floor by far, and I don't think the other guys have enough of a justification for ceiling to say that they're useful there. John, Standard League, ETN or Brian Robinson. Ron Rivera said after getting Gibson involved in the second half of the last game, he needs to get Gibson a little more involved. I really do think he wants a 1-2 punch. And if Green Bay gets out to a lead, then it's going to be the J.D. McKissick show. ETN will be involved no matter what, and I don't fear the Giants matchup in any way at all. So I think right now ETN has given us a high floor the last 2 games, and I think he maintains that. I think his floor is way higher than Brian Robinson's, and I think he's on the verge of having that pop game that we're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's why we drafted him. So I think it's ETN 60 to 40%. Let me check this in a second. I got another YouTube question. And by the way, if anybody hit the like button, subscribe button, I would appreciate it greatly. It always helps us out over at RotoWire. And if you want 2 days free behind the RotoWire paywall, go to rotowire.com/try. No credit card, no shenanigans, just an email address. Catch our great content there. All right, Henry, you got a question. You've got full PPR, 2 receivers. Well, we need 5 of these players. St. Brown has to be an auto in because he's healthy. Higgins is auto in because I think if they're going to shadow AJ Terrell, which they may or may not, it's going to be on Chase. Pittman is going. Oh my gosh! Wow, you got a bunch of big names. So who do we sit here? We need 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 7. All right, you got to sit Stevenson out because Damian Harris is back. You know what? Fournette, because this could be a game they don't need him a lot against Carolina. If they get out to a big lead, it's potential they could put their subs in. That's my rationale for sitting him. And then I assume you mean Damian Pierce, given the high-level names you put up here. So St. Brown, Higgins, Pittman, Chase, and then Pierce. I think those are your 5. I think those are the 5 to go with. We'll sit Fournette because game script could pull him out of the game early because he's been getting overworked, and Stevenson because he's sharing with Damian Harris this week. All right. Got a Josh question. Josh Castile from Insta. McCaffrey. Oh, that's a good question. McCaffrey or ETN? Wow, that's a good question because we don't know how much McCaffrey's going to play, right? And that's the thing. But, my God, McCaffrey is not going to be the focal point of the defense. The defense didn't game plan for him. He didn't get signed till Thursday night. So the game plan was so far installed at this point. And it's not like McCaffrey's like a conference or division opponent for Kansas City. They're in the AFC and McCaffrey's been in the NFC. So they can't really be prepared for him. And if it's a package of even 5 plays, they can even repeat some of those plays. So I'm going to say this. ETN is safer. ETN has established the last week a really, really good floor. So if you want a safe 10 to 12 PPR points, if that's where you're going, you play him. If you want, and ETN could blow up here too, but McCaffrey's McCaffrey, right? McCaffrey could get 7 touches, 115 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That could happen. So McCaffrey is your swing for defense play if you need that real upset. But if you just need a safe, strong game, ETN's it because we don't really know what McCaffrey's going to do here. It's a great question. Henry, most likely to be traded, Cooks, Claypool, or Judy? Oh, wow. All of the above. Right? It's a good question. Houston, I'm surprised they haven't traded Cooks yet. But at this point, they have to realize their season's kind of over. I think Cooks. I think Cooks might be. They all could get dealt. They all can get dealt. Judy's the least likely of the 3. It's Cooks 1, Claypool 2, Judy 3. Kevon, Zeke or Jamal Williams? I got to go Zeke here. Zeke has been at least 15 touches a week. This is a beautiful, beautiful matchup for him. Understand this with Jamal Williams. He played like 22 snaps in week 5. Craig Reynolds played 32. He outsnapped him by 10. Now Williams had 15 carries, but Reynolds had 12 touches. So that's and whereas Zeke is like 60% of the snap share, and he's getting the red zone work and Williams didn't get any targets last week. So that kind of takes away some of his upside. I think Zeke has a higher floor, and they both would have similar things if Jamal Williams went off. All right, let's see. We have another Insta question here. You're welcome, Gary. And Coach Amador, AJ Dillon or Nico Collins. So yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because Dillon hasn't been playing well. He hasn't scored in 4 straight, and that's been a problem. I mean, touchdowns are always fickle, right? But the Packers haven't been scoring a ton of points either. I don't know that Nico Collins has shown enough of a ceiling yet. I think he's going to get there eventually, but I don't think he's shown enough of a ceiling to bench him over Dillon, who actually has one. Dillon does have always 2 touchdowns, and he hasn't scored forever, but he has that if they get into the red zone deep. So I think for that matter, since they have similar floors, I think Dillon could have a big game, whereas Nico Collins, I'd like to see him, but I haven't seen one yet. And so that's why I'm going to lean A.J. Dillon 55 to 45%. As always, gut feel, go with that one. Just Bob, hey, happy tight end Sunday. Nice. I like that. I heard that. Tight end Sunday. Craze03, Drake or Damian Harris. I think Drake's the number 3 here today. Gus Edwards is back. I assume he gets 8 to 10 touches. Remember, the last 2 games when both Hill and Drake were active, were available, Drake was deactivated. John Harbaugh talked up Justice Hill, saying he's looking like a star running back, and he had 2 good games. And he said that he'd been seeing that in practice for a while. To me, based on Coach Harbaugh's statements, the deactivation of Drake when they both were healthy, to me, it's going to rule him out. We're going to say Damian Harris. Jim Coop, you need to start 2 running backs in a flex. Latavius, Foreman, Drake, Wilson, or Michelle. All right, so I'm going to say I have to think, I think the team Panthers has to see Foreman as a better option than Hubbard, who was 3.6 a carry last year, 7 drops. Foreman, to me, is a big back. He's a better back in every area. So to me, I think they have to use him. If they fall behind, he should catch passes. So I think Foreman is in. And then I don't trust Latavius Murray. And last week he had a great matchup, and so that was fine. He's washed, but he had a great matchup. But this week's not a great matchup. The Jets are top 12 against the run. I don't think he has much room in the run, and I think he may not see as much work as he did. Drake, as I just said, I think he's the number 3 there this week. So that leaves me with Jeff Wilson, who I think should get 8 to 10 carries, and against Kansas City, that could be fine. And I think Sony Michel is a great streamer option this week because, look, Eckler took a beating last week. Even when he was catching the ball, he was getting blasted. So I think he's going to be tired and sore this week. And I think that they're giving the backup touches anyway. I think Michelle gets 12 to 14 touches this week. And if they're in the red zone, I think he has a chance of scoring. So I think he's a decent guy to say, you know what, let's take a shot here. All right, Randy, Hill or Edmonds? You know what? I got to say Hill. Like I said, and if you've listened, I don't know if you've been on the last couple of minutes, I'm sure you have. All the tea leaves show he is there, with Edwards, he's going to be heavily involved. Chase Edmonds hasn't been involved, and his role has gotten worse and worse and worse. So I think Hill right now, and I still think Edmonds rest of schedule because Mostert's getting too heavy a workload. He has not held up to that workload his entire career. At 30 years old, I am willing to gamble that at some point he's not able to answer the bell. He's already got like these little knee issues, I guess, in practice. So to me, rest of schedule would probably be Edmonds. All right. David, you've got Pollard or Kenny and Drake. And I'm sure you just heard me chirp out about Drake thinking he's the number 3 there. So it's going to be Pollard here pretty easily. And Lisa, you've got Carter, Hines, or Gibson. So Carter's still seeing 10 to 12 touches a game, but the matchup is nasty this week. Denver's been really good. And Hines, we just don't, the role in the offense. They're playing Tennessee, who's very good up in the front 7. That's Gibson got work late in that last game, and Coach Rivera said he wanted to get him more work. So to me, I think of those 3, I think Gibson has the best opportunity to see enough touches to equal the other 2. And potentially he looks like when last week he was a guy who looks like he had been benched and he's playing really hard. So I think that he could come up with an explosive play here. So I'm going to lean toward Gibson based on matchup and coach speak. And then Christopher Fields has Brian Robinson or Damian Harris. Wow. That's a tough one there. They both are pretty, but I think ultimately Brian Robinson is an easy matchup with the Packers, though. So, I think he could get a lot more bang for the buck on limited, even if he gets 12 carries. Whereas Damian Harris, splitting with Stevenson, and it's a good matchup with the Bears. So I'm going to say this. I think because of the matchup, Robinson gets a slight edge. It's 52-48. If you have a gut feel, go with it. But Harris still is, like I said, Stevenson may steal some of that red zone work, where I think if they get near the goal line, Robinson has to be the guy because of Gibson's fumbling issues. So I think that would be where we look there. All right, Ray, you got Tua or Geno. Love Tua's matchup here. I think that they're playing Pittsburgh, who doesn't get a good pass rush, and I think with the zone they're going to have to play on defense. I think that the Hill and I expect Waddle is good to go. Even if not, I think Hill's enough. I think that Tua is able, with that accuracy, to lead those runners in the yard after the catch, and I think it could be a big game for him. Geno, I really like the run matchup better for Seattle than the passing game matchup. The Chargers get enough done to confuse with their Brandon Staley's look, especially in the second half. I'm going to lean Tua there. Deontay or Kirk. Kirk does have a decent matchup, but teams have compressed the defense on the Jaguars because they realize they have no explosive receivers. So that's the problem we're facing. Whereas I think Deontay is going to see targets, and Miami is like 28 against receivers. So I think that's a place where they can, and they're tough on the run. So I think that they're going to have to throw, and I think Deontay is going to get 7+ catches here most likely. So I lean Deontay. J. Red, PPR flex, you start 2. Wilson, Dillon, Everett. Like Everett this week. Woods, Jamal Williams. Yeah, no Swift. I know. Remember, Jamal Williams only had 22 snaps. He had 15 carries on those 22 snaps. And Craig Reynolds had 32 last game they played in week 5. Woods has been seeing a decent floor, and against the zone of the Colts, he should come out. And remember, Derrick Henry in the second half of that Colts game got shut down. He had a great first half, and then that tough Indy run defense showed up. So Woods could be in for 4 to 6 catches here. I love Everett this week because we don't know if Keenan Allen's going to play. We know Josh Palmer's out. Donald Parham's out, who was taking targets away. I think this may be one of the last weeks we can get some out of Everett, so I like him. Dillon, like we said, he hasn't been doing well. He hasn't scored in 4 weeks. Jeff Wilson, among this group, may not get enough touches. So I'm going to rank them this way. I'm going to say Robert Woods 1. I'm going to say I'm going to say Jamal Williams 2 because he has a floor. And then Gerald Everett 3. Man, how do you not put Dillon in there? But so of those are the safe ones. Dillon is the boom bust because he could get red zone work. So I'm going to stick to my order. But if you want boom bust, I would move Everett out and I would put Dillon in. That's the way I'll rank those out. All right, Ricardo, you're welcome. And let's see who else. Insta, and then oh man, Frosty Beverage, man, thank you. That was very nice of you to say that. And David, you've got, and I'll come back to YouTube and Twitter in a second. Pollard, Robinson, Brian Robinson, James Robinson, or Kenny Drake need 2. I think Drake's the number 3 today because, again, he was deactivated in the 2 games Justice Hill was last healthy. So I think Hill is ahead of him, and then Gus Edwards is back. So we're going to move Drake out of there. And Brian Robinson is a great matchup. James Robinson is starting to see less and less snap share. Pollard's going to see a small number of touches, but they're playing Detroit, and Detroit is terrible against the run and the pass. So I think for me, it's going to be Tony Pollard and Brian Robinson here. I think that James Robinson may have more upside than Brian Robinson, but I think the safest ones are Pollard and Brian Robinson. But if you have to take a real swing for defense and risk some downside, then I might go with James over Brian Robinson. Henry, Pacheco or Zeke? When I read the article about Pacheco, it was that Andy Reid was very happy with Pacheco's pass protection, that it's really come along in the past weeks. And he was actually considered a good pass blocker coming out of school. And so I think they saw it's game plan specific. I think they saw with Nick Bosa, passers, we got to keep Mahomes clean here. And I think they went with the pass protecting back, worried about the 49ers pressure with Bosa and company. So I think that's why he's starting. I still think he gets 10 to 12 carries, but San Francisco, even though they're missing both defensive tackles, they're still not a run defense mess with it because their linebackers really lead the charge there. Zeke has a beautiful matchup. So I think that Zeke is going to get 70. He gets like 75 yards like every game pretty much, right? And a great chance to score. I'm going to say Zeke is way, way, way safer. And I don't know that Pacheco has more upside than Zeke because Zeke has already shown that he's still got some juice and it's an easy matchup for him. All right, Dev, you need a flex. Brian Robinson, Edwards, Hilaire, Melvin Gordon, Dubs, and Bateman. So I think your safest floor guy of this group is Robinson in an easy matchup against the Packers that can't really stop the run. I don't know what to do with Melvin Gordon because he was benched last week, and the coach may say he's a starter, but I trust nothing out of Nathaniel Hackett's mouth. Zero. Edwards-Helaire is going to have a role, but Pacheco is starting, so an already limited workload for Edwards-Helaire may get smaller. He does have upside, but if he doesn't get the touches, that's problematic. Dubs is going to be boom or bust because he gets deep shots every week. They just haven't connected. Against Washington, they might. So he's your boom bust guy. But I think as much as I said Brian Robinson is a good floor play and a good matchup, if Bateman is active, which we're going to find out in the next 10 minutes, I think against Cleveland, Denzel Ward is out. He hasn't been playing great, but they're without Denzel Ward. So to me, your safest play if Bateman's active, I think you go with Bateman because I'd rather have him over Robinson, who's going to split work. If they trail, it's going to be J.D. McKissick. We saw Gibson get involved in the second half. So Bateman, if he's active, and then the boom bust would be Dubs. But I don't know if Bateman may have as much ceiling because they are playing Cleveland here, and it's a wheels up. So probably Bateman if healthy. Otherwise, then Robinson safe, Dubs boom bust. Rodney Mostert, Dubs, Duvernay. So Pittsburgh's very, very good against the run, and but I still think nonetheless he's going to get 15 carries. Breaking a long run. He hasn't really done that this year, but I think of the three, he is by far the safest play. He has a better floor, and I'm going to say it again, Dubs gets deep shots every week. So if he converts one of those, he's your upside guy. So Mostert's going to probably get you 8 to 10 points. I don't know if he scores. Your pitcher pretty stout in the red zone. Dubs would be your guy. You're risking a 3 or a 4, but he could get you 18 to 20. So I would frame it out. Duvernay, I'm leaving out of this one. I think with Bateman back, his targets are not going to be reliable. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. Chargers fan on Insta. Good morning. Ayuk or Sutton? So I'm worried Sauce Gardner is going to be on Sutton a lot. And I think with Brett Rippon, I think Rippon is going to look away from that. I don't know that Sauce Gardner shadows Sutton, but he might. And if he does, that would be curtains with a bad quarterback and that scenario. So Ayuk, look, there's weeks he doesn't get targets, right? But Kansas City, this could be a high-scoring game. And Ayuk is an excellent, excellent football player. And with McCaffrey even on the field, it's less attention that teams can spend on the other players. I'm going to say Ayuk because they both have potential low floors, but I think Ayuk has much more potential for a ceiling game. All right, let's see here. We got Emilito. You have Stash, Jameson, Williams, or OBJ. The last thing I heard yesterday now is that OBJ may not be in until mid-December. So it looks like he is going to be a player that's going to be ready for the NFL and not the fantasy playoffs. So of those two, Jameson, Williams would have a better chance of being available to you for a period of time. Craze 03, Brian Robinson or Jamal Williams. So Jamal Williams doesn't have a bad matchup, and I mentioned earlier he had 22 snaps, 15 carries in week 5, whereas Craig Reynolds had 32 snaps, 10 snaps more than Williams, and 12 touches. So that was interesting. Brian Robinson, Coach Rivera, as I mentioned earlier, said that he does want to get Gibson a little more involved after the second half. So I think at this point, Robinson probably has a decent floor, but Williams doesn't have a bad matchup. He didn't get a target in the last game. I would probably give Jamal Williams a 55 to 45% edge on Robinson, although Robinson is an easy matchup. The Dallas matchup isn't scary. And if they trail, Williams, even though Reynolds saw the targets of the running backs in week 5, Williams could be involved there. So I think Williams is a better player at this point, too. So that's the route we'll go there. All right, let's see what we got here. We got Sideshow Mill, Lazard or Gamble on Waddle's health. Yeah, Lazard's been playing well. In the 1 week he didn't put up yardage, he scored in 4 or 5 games. Washington is really not good in coverage. You're right. You're taking a risk on Waddle's health. And at this point, you've got a guy that's producing. Can Waddle get 10 catches for 190 yards? Yes. Can he get 3 for 15? Yes. So I think the way Lazard's been playing, and he has had a high floor in the last 4 games. So I think you say, you know what, Waddle's not 100%. We don't know if there's potential for setback. I think you bank the save points. I don't know where Lazard goes. I don't think Lazard's going off here. So if you need a 20-point game from your receiver, then you got to play Waddle. But if you can do 12, and you're good with 12 and saying, you know what, solid game, then Lazard's probably your guy. All right. Just Bob. All right. He said Williams. All right. And then Robert. All right. You need a flex 0.5 PPR. Murray, Mooney, or Wilson. So Murray actually has a tougher matchup. The Jets have been 12th against the run. They've been a very good defense overall. And I don't trust Nathaniel Hackett. He says that Gordon's going to play. I don't believe it, but he might. So I think Wilson's going to get you 8 to 10 carries, and there's nothing scary about the Kansas City defense this year. So I think Wilson's your safe floor guy because he's been making chunk runs, not every week, but most weeks in the last 4. He's your floor guy. I don't think Bill Belichick's going to sell out to stop Mooney. I think he's going to sell out to stop the run and make Fields beat them because he doesn't respect Fields, I don't think. And I think Mooney sneaks in. So Mooney is your boom bust guy because he can get you 80 yards and a touchdown. He also can get you very little. So he's the risky one. Wilson's your floor play. I think this week he has one more week of value before it craters next week. And I think he could get you around 8 to 10 fantasy points and half PPR because he doesn't catch the ball much anyway. All right, let me see who we got in there. Instagram. Kabroom23 asks, would you play Schultz or Bellinger? So at this point with Schultz, until we see him do something, I think since Bellinger hasn't been high volume, but he's been productive. So I think at this point we look at Bellinger and we say, you know what, I want to get something. Schultz has gotten like nothing. He had a game where he supposed he was healthy and did nothing. So for right now, I just think we just take the few points we get out of the tight end, hope we get Bellinger scores a touchdown. But I've got to see Schultz do something because I always thought, well, I won't get into it, but I think the other tight end showed last week it's kind of replaceable. But with Dak back and having Gallup, I think they're going to run a lot in this game too. I would just be safe with Bellinger. I don't know what Schultz's upside is at this point because it's been a while since we've seen something. Michael on YouTube. Flex Ayuk, Dubs, or James Robinson full PPR. So I think Ayuk it should be a shootout with Kansas City. Ayuk is an excellent player. He's getting targets. He does have a floor because we see there are weeks they kind of ignore him. But I think if they have to score, he has to be part of that. So I do favor Ayuk. Dubs is your boom bust guy. He gets deep shots every week. They don't always cash in. If they cash in, he has that big game. James Robinson of the 3, his workload seems to be shrinking. His snap share is shrinking, and Travis Etienne is becoming more and more of a thing. So I think Ayuk is your safe play with a reasonable ceiling. I think if you got to go complete boom bust and just risk for a 20, Dubs could get 2 big plays, but I think he also can get you a 3-point game. I would play Ayuk of the 3, but if you need to risk, then I think that Dubs would be your risky play here. All right, see if I have another Insta question. King D Love, flex, Cooks, Dillon, or Everett. You know, Cooks hasn't been getting it done. He struggled, but they're coming out of the bye. You have to think they'll be able to get him the ball against Las Vegas. I think he's the best player of these 3, and I think there's something coming off a bye where there's hope for that. Everett's in a great spot because we don't know if Keenan Allen's playing, but Palmer's out. Donald Parham, who's been stealing targets from Everett's out. They're going to have to move the ball through the air a bit, and I think he's in a great spot. I think Cooks probably has the best shot at a strong floor with a little bit of ceiling, not much. He doesn't have blow-up games right now, and they're getting Collins well. I think Everett is a tight end, right? How much yardage is he going to get? So I think Cooks is actually a better play than Everett here, despite that. And then Dillon is the boom bust. He hasn't done much, but there's always that 2-touchdown game if they get the ball in the red zone and he gets the ball. So it's probably going to be Cooks slightly over Everett, but if you got to go boom bust, Dillon's the most likely of the 3 to be able to score twice. All right. Martin, you've got Pacheco, Dillon, Robinson, or Hunt. So I think Pacheco gets 10 to 12 carries here. It's a tough matchup. And as I mentioned earlier, Andy Reid pointed out he's in for pass protection because I think they're worried about Nick Bosa, and he's the best pass protector of the running backs right now. So I think he's game plan specific, but I don't think that means he gets the ball a ton. And I don't know how much they want to run the ball in the 49ers either. They may not come in with an idea to run so much. Dillon, I just mentioned a second ago in the other answer, he has that boom bust. He hasn't done much. He's not been reliable. Brian Robinson has an easy matchup, but if they fall behind, it'll be the J.D. McKissick show. And Hunt just hasn't had the pop games this year. So I think in terms of floor, I think probably Brian Robinson has the most stable floor of them all because it is an easy matchup and he should get you 60+ yards. I think in terms of upside, like I said with Dylan has that 2 touchdown upside. If they get the ball in the red zone, he would be there and they could do it this week. But I probably the biggest boom bust of them all is Pacheco. He could break a big play, but 49ers defense probably doesn't give that up. So I'd probably say Robinson safe, Dylan boom bust, Pacheco shoot for the moon with a low floor because, like I said, I don't think he has any nuance. He just runs hard and fast. That might not be enough against the 49ers. Daxon, you've got PPR, Hunter, Dylan. Yeah, I know. That's a good question, too. Hunt has not been showing us any upside. That's been problematic. Dylan hasn't had a touchdown in 4 games. Dylan's going to get a little more work than Hunt. And both of them have middling to positive matchups. So I'm going to say Dylan 52 to 48%. If you have a gut feel, go with it. Malik, I said, Randy, maybe MVS or Thornton. MVS laid the egg last week. He hadn't been doing that. Thornton's playing the Bears. We don't really know what to expect as well with Mac Jones. He did well with Bailey Zappi, which was interesting. Don't know what is going to be with Mac Jones. If the Patriots control the game, they may run a lot. They may not need to throw a lot. I do think against the 49ers, the run game usually don't run much on them, and they're being banged up in the secondary a bit. And so I think MVS is probably the play here. He hasn't just been the downfield guy. He's been a lot of intermediate. So I think he had a touchdown call back last week, too, if I remember right. But MVS has been a part of the offense, a reliable part, and I think they're going to need him this week. So I would probably go 55 to 45 MVS over Thornton. I go 60-40. I go 60-40 MVS over Thornton. All right, Martin, Lazard or Lockett. So Lockett has a hamstring. He didn't practice all week. Supposed to play. Speed guys with hamstring gets me nervous because he could have a setback. That's why I'm going with Lazard. Lazard has been very solid for 4 straight weeks. The one game he didn't get yardage, he scored a touchdown, but he has obviously Aaron Rodgers' trust, right? I'm very concerned about a setback for Lockett. Or if the game gets out of control one way or the other, they might pull him. Say, we got to keep him healthy. So I'd say Lazard. All right, Lisa, you've got Tua or Rodgers. So ultimately, I like Tua's matchup with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's secondary is not good. And you got Tyreek. I think Waddle's going to play, but even if he doesn't, you got Tyreek Hill, and you're fine there. I think Tua has a big game here. I know that Pittsburgh has the reputation for being the big rushing. They're not. They're not getting pressure rate. I think the lack of pressure and the bad secondary, that should align for Tua and everything. Whereas Rodgers, it's pretty much been 220 to 250, usually 2 touchdowns. He's a nice floor play, but he hasn't really shown us much ceiling. I made a bold call on XM because they told me to make a bold call, but it was like big game Rodgers. I don't. It's a bold call. It's not like an expectation. I think Tua has a strong game here. All right, let's see. You got Yeatman, Stevens. Do I like Stevenson for Travis? I assume you mean in a trade, or is that an or? I'll just say it this ETN this week because he's had a good floor 2 weeks ago. Stevens is going to split work with Harris. Rest of the season, I think ETN is going to come on and take more and more of the role as the weeks go on, and I think he's already shown the explosive elements. So however you meant that question, I'll answer it both ways. Robert, Lockett, Boyd, or Robert Woods? All right. Again, I'm worried about Lockett with an in-game setback. If it's a hamstring and it's a speed guy, that is usually not a good combination. Boyd is – I think Atlanta slows this game down a lot. They lower possessions. And I think with the defensive personnel, either Higgins or Chase is good. Whoever's away from A.J. Terrell is going to be the mark, and they're just going to just hammer that. So Boyd's probably get 3 or 4 targets. I think Robert Woods is a good floor play this week against Indy. Indy, second half against Derrick Henry last time, because Henry had like 90 yards at the half. He had like 20 in the second half. Indy, they're always good against the run. First half, they fell asleep that last meeting against Tennessee. So I think they're going to have to throw a bit, and I think Woods has a decent game. I think he's a good floor play. If you need this boom or bust is Lockett, because he could hurt the hamstring and be done, but he also could get 2 long touchdowns because the defense is bad. So Woods is safe floor. Lockett is boom or bust. All right, look, Malik, probably Randy. Hey, Randy, I think. Ayuk or Dubs. So I think Ayuk has a similar ceiling to Dubs when I think about this, but he has a better floor. Dubs is getting targets. He's catching only about half of them, so that's been problematic. And it's possible Sammy Watkins plays. Not that I'm afraid of Sammy Watkins, but if that's targets away, it's targets away. I'm going to say Ayuk. It should be a shootout there, and Kansas City doesn't scare me defensively. Eatman, you've got Evans or Amon. So St. Brown, when he gets his targets, he cashes in, right? And you would think the slot should be available against Dallas to be a way to mitigate some pass rush. Dallas's best corners are on the outside. So you would think St. Brown's in for a good game. I think he's the floor play. He has a great floor. Mike Evans coming off a 4 for 42 in a week that I know Tampa was embarrassed about losing to a team without all their corners and their free safety. I think they're going to just bludgeon them with the passing game and get back on track. Brady had to be ticked off after last week. I think Evans has destroyed Carolina the last 3 times he played them. So Evans is definitely a ceiling play here, but there's a chance they decide to keep running the ball, and they can't run, but they run anyway. So I think St. Brown is a higher floor play. I think Evans could have a monster game. I don't know that Brown has a monster game, but I think so. Again, if you want the safe, strong, high floor, it's St. Brown. If you're willing to risk a possible low game for a big one, it would be Evans in that case. All right, let's see what else we got here. You're welcome, Kabroom. King D Love. Yeah, Swift is inactive. Yeah, let me check the inactives real quick. See if I can get to another question while I'm doing that. We got Saucer 123 Montgomery or Harris. So I'm going to say because of his 73+% snap rate that he gets, Montgomery, he can get it done as a runner or a receiver. The Bears do run block pretty well. Harris is in the split with Ramondre. So there's obviously the concern and the nervousness there. See if I can get this on here. All right, let me just real quick see if there's any inactives that we all need to know. If anybody by the time I scroll down, I won't be able to catch the comments. So, all right, let's see what you got. You've got Sean, you got Robinson or Kenyon Drake. Again, as I said earlier, I am concerned about Kenyon Drake here because the last 2 games where both he and Justice Hill were available, Drake was deactivated. Justice Hill was the guy. And Coach Harbaugh went out of his way to say that he had seen it in practice. And in the game, then Hill looks like a star runner. So Hill is a guy that they invested in. He's a guy that they like. And I think he is behind Gus Edwards as number 2. I think Drake's the number 3. So I'm going to say James Robinson there. All right, let's see. J.C. Horn, the corner for Carolina, is out. That's a continued boost to the Bucs passing game that doesn't need a boost. We already knew that the Jaguars would be without corner Shaquille Griffin, but I don't know that the Giants could take advantage of it. Rashad Bateman is active. Play him as a wide receiver too. Cleveland's without their quarterback Denzel Ward. Packers are without left tackle David Bakhtiari, which that could hurt Dobbs on the downfield passing game a bit. Obviously, as we knew, Dak Prescott is playing. We knew Julio Jones wasn't. Now, the corners, Tampa's down 2 corners, but it shouldn't matter against P.J. Walker, Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy, Bunting. But if there was any chance to hope that you can get flex value out of DJ Moore or a big play, not predicting it, but at least with those 2 corners down, it's possible. Gus Edwards, as we said, is active. We knew that. I don't know how much work again. I assume it's not a full workload. Josh Reynolds is active, but he faces those Dallas corners. That's not so good. All right, Mark Andrews is active, and I think that catches us up. All right, let's go back to some questions. I had this one earlier, Tua or Geno. I think Tua is in a great spot here. And with Tua in a great spot, Pittsburgh doesn't really rush, and they don't have the defensive backs to hang with the Miami receivers. So I'm going to say Tua pretty safely here. Geno, I think they're going to run better than they are throw the ball, so that'll be fine. King D Love, half PPR, pick 2. ETN, Pollard, or Jamal Williams. ETN looks like he's on the precipice of becoming a big deal, and the matchup is not scary. I like Pollard over Williams because Detroit is just so bad against the run that Pollard will only need 8 carries to have a big game, whereas Williams is splitting with he was outsnapped by Craig Reynolds in week 5, 32-22. So there we go. B, Gus or Gibson? Yeah, that's a tough one, right? I don't know how much work Gus is going to get. I imagine he'd be a little bit rusty, you would have to think. The matchup is phenomenal, though. And I have to say at this point, Gibson has at least a floor because Coach Rivera said after the last game he needed to get Gibson a few more looks. But so I would probably just err on sitting Gus in his first game. I would say, but Gus could get goal line work. So I'd say Gibson is your floor where you want 6 to 8 points and you're good, call it a day. Gus could get fewer, but Gus could get goal line work or break a big run against a bad Cleveland defense. So Gus is your boom bust play. If you want to go boom bust, it's Gus. If you want a few safe points and we call it a day, it'd be Gibson. All right, so what else we got here? We got Josh on Insta. Can't decide between Moore, I assume DJ Moore, Jacoby Myers, Ayuk, Sutton, or Mike Williams. Pick 3. I have to sit DJ Moore because PJ Walker, and I know the Bucs are down 2 corners. He hasn't done anything. I can't trust him. And then I would probably sit Sutton because I think Sauce Gardner is going to be on him a lot, and I don't know that Brett Rippon could get him the ball. So I'm gonna sit those, and I'm gonna go with Myers because he gets a ton of targets every week, regardless of game script. Ayuk in a great matchup where there should be high scoring, and Mike Williams. I know he'll see Tariq Woolen some, but I don't think he'll travel, and I think Mike Williams may be one of the only ways to move the ball this week. So I think that's the way I would go there. All right, let's see, Marcos, you've got Waddle, Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, start 2. Thank you for the comment on the great show. Appreciate that. So Matt Ryan finally started to throw the ball to the middle of the field last week, and that's a big deal because he's very good in the middle of the field, and Michael Pittman operates on a lot of crossers going to the middle of the field, and there's nothing scary about the Tennessee matchup. They're actually much better against the run than they are against the pass, and then Pittman's area where he runs routes is much better in terms of the pressure rate that Tennessee gets, so I love him there. Taylor, look, it's a bad matchup. I think they may have fixed some offensive line issues. Dennis Kelly, who's a swing tackle, he played last week, and he looked good, and the line looked functional for the first time all year. And so because Waddle is potentially limited by injury and he has a night game, I would eliminate the risk of him either being a late scratch or having a setback in game. That's the only reason I would say Pittman and Taylor, because Waddle has to be in the equation, obviously. But I think because of the uncertainty of the injury, I think that's why we probably would push him to the bottom. DJ Duvernay, at Montgomery or Pacheco, full PPR this week, Pickens or Wan'Dale, and then Hopkins rest of schedule. So Montgomery has a 73+% workload almost every week he plays. And so there's a lot of value to that. Pacheco, Andy Reid called out Pacheco's pass protection. And I think that's what he needs against Nick Bosa this week. So I think Pacheco is still going to mix in. I think it's going to be 10 to 12 carries. It's not a good defense to get yards against. So I think Montgomery is safer. I think Pacheco has swing for the fence, boom bust appeal because if he breaks a long run with his speed, then there could be that. But I think otherwise Montgomery is much safer, and I think Montgomery should have a role in the passing game. Pickens or Wan'Dale, you know what? So the only thing I worry about Pickens this week, it's difficult because he has a great secondary matchup against Miami, but Miami blitzes a ton, and that could be a problem for Kenny Pickett. But I think nonetheless, Pittsburgh's been okay enough in pass pro, so I think Pickens has real ceiling this week. Could he really have a big game here? Wan'Dale, I'm still not sure what to expect. I think we haven't seen Daniel Jones throw enough, and I think we haven't seen enough from Wan'Dale to say he has a higher ceiling than Pickens. So I'm going to go with Pickens here. I think Pickens has a reasonable floor, but I think he really could have a ceiling game here. All right, back to Insta. King D, you need Njoku, Everett, Myers, Wan'Dale, or James Robinson. Njoku really is a second option to passing. It varies. Sometimes it's Cooper, then Njoku. So once in a while, it's Peoples-Jones and Njoku. But I think his role has been so stable, he's hard to sit. And then Myers is hard to sit because he gets so many darn targets. I think Wan'Dale is too much of an unknown right now. James Robinson's losing touches by the week and snaps to ETN. Everett I like, but when you got Njoku and Myers, I think that Everett's too much of a wild card to go over them. And then Jashalo, Lou, sorry if I said that wrong. You need Tunyon or Hockenson. So Hockenson had the one huge game, and in other games he's had targets. He hasn't done much with them. That said, he has a better floor than Tunyon because Tunyon had the huge target game last week, but that varies week to week. And against Washington, they might not need him. That said, Tunyon does have upside. He could score. Hockenson is the floor play. Tunyon, you know what? I would just say Hawkinson 60 to 40% because I think nonetheless against Dallas, they're going to need the middle of the field to mitigate the pass rush. I'll go that route on that. Dr. Roberto, am I the only one that still thinks Hill? No. Hill is the guy there. The last two times both Hill and Drake were available, Drake was deactivated. And they should all – and I don't see that he was active, but I think they all three would be active. I don't think I can see if the reports out on that one yet. But, no, Hill is the number 2. And that really comes from what John Harbaugh said, that Hill was looking like a star runner and then he got hurt. So, you're not the only one. Full PPR, Fam first, McLaurin or Bateman. So, Heineke had thrown like a 25% target share when he played with McLaurin to him. That was a different dynamic in the offense. Curtis Samuel's there. They have other options. So there's that. Green Bay has not been playing well, but Bateman's back and Denzel Ward is out. So I want to say that they both have similar floors, but I think Bateman could actually be more likely to have a big game against Cleveland. That's been very terrible, both against the run and the pass. So I would say that. And then the next question we have, Kirk or Najee or Pickens or Brian Robinson. Yeah, that's a good problem. Yeah, it's a tough one. Kirk is struggling because teams are compressing the defense because they realize there's no explosive receivers in Jacksonville. So now everybody's packed in. That middle stuff isn't open. Najee's been brutal in Miami. They're a good run defense. So I don't like him there. Pickens has real upside here. Again, I don't know how much the blitz gets home. Pittsburgh's a decent pass pro, but their corners have been struggling. So I think Pickens is your boom bust guy. He could have a big game. Brian Robinson is your floor play. He is playing a bad Packers defense. He may split with Gibson still, but I think Robinson at least has a decent floor and he should get some red zone work. And then Najee or Kirk at flex. Kirk just hasn't been getting – now the matchup for Kirk isn't bad here, and maybe that's the saving grace. I think Kirk has enough of a matchup advantage over Najee that he's useful there. And then Jason, 1 point PPR, Lazard, ETN, Bateman. You have Tunyon as your tight end. I usually don't – I'm glad you told me, but normally I don't take one and the other because, if that's your tight end, then that's your tight end. We take everything separately. ETN is really showing some explosive upside, and he is a player who we could begin to look at as somebody who could be a high-end option. So I think his floor is similar to your receivers. And I think that he may even have a better ceiling because I think in the matchup this week against the Giants, this could be a big game. Bateman is a great matchup too. I'm going to say ETN slightly over Bateman. Lazard, it could be a lower volume game overall. So if you have a gut feel, go with it. But I have a slight lean ETN over Bateman. Raymond, you traded Sutton and Ramondre for Justin Jefferson. Now you need a running back and receiver to start. Edwards, Murray, Wandale, or Peoples-Jones. Murray has a bad matchup, and I don't know what the heck that coach is doing there in terms of use, if he can use him again or not. Wandale is a real unknown commodity. Now, Shaquille Griffin is out at corner for Jacksonville, which helps. Peoples-Jones, some weeks he doesn't get targets, some weeks he does. And then Edwards. We don't know how much work Gus is going to get, but it's an easy matchup. Of these, I almost think in this matchup, Wandale may have the best floor of the group because I think he's going to see some work here. I think Peoples-Jones could have upside. I probably lean Wandale slightly. It's a tough question. It's a good one. All right, looks like you're caught up there. Okay, good. Okay, good. All right, let me see what else we got here. And I'll go back here. All right, Gabriel. Thornton or Bateman? I got to say Bateman. Bateman's back healthy. Denzel Ward's out for Cleveland. I'm going to roll that way. Best stats, Gus or Panthers running backs or Jamison Williams or Pacheco? I probably say Pacheco. And he's going to be week to week. There are going to be weeks they don't use him. But if he does, if he becomes a thing, if he wins the job, it's a great team to run on. So that's why I'm not expecting Jamison Williams to play. He might. I don't think they need to rush him out there. Panthers running backs, game script's going to be horrible. And Gus, eventually, Dobbins might be back. So I think Pacheco's your lottery ticket. Again, he might not be a starter. He might be a 1 week start because of Nick Bosa. That might be the only reason he's starting today. But I think ultimately, if he somehow gets that role, then he might be the best one. All right, crazy. Good. And in bowl 10, Davis Mills or Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. Coming out of the bye, I think the Raiders game could be high scoring with Houston, whereas I think that the Pats may not need to throw a lot. I'm going to give Davis Mills a 52-48 over the Patriots quarterback. So I think he'll have to throw more, and I think he'll have some success throwing. Jay, Everett or Dillon? Dillon's a safer floor. If you need your 8 to 10 points, you bank Dillon. Everett's in a good matchup here. Parham's out with stealing targets from him. I don't know that Keenan Allen's playing or not. We're not sure of that one right now. So that's going to be interesting. So I'm probably saying Dillon, though. I think Everett has a real upside. But Dillon, he hasn't scored in 4 weeks, but he could always score in the red zone. So I'm going to say Dillon here because I think he's just so much safer. Henry, you have to drop one. Pickens, Thomas, Juju, or Edmonds. I expect at some point that Mostert's going to break down, and at that point, Edmonds might be maybe Edmonds isn't a system fit. Thomas, if he plays, he's going to have a role right away. He was okay when he was on the field. I don't know if they're cryptic about the injury. Juju had 3 guys not tackle him last week on a play, and he had a big butt. So, I don't know how much upside he has. I'm probably dropping Edmonds. He hasn't done anything. I'm probably just dropping him. Carr or Gino. Oh, man. Yeah, I know. Oh, well, here's the thing. So Raiders are 1-4. Their coach decided, you know what? We're going to lean on the guy. We didn't pick up his 5th-year option. We're going to make Josh Jacobs a centerpiece of our offense. We're going to ignore Devontae Adams, and we're going to ignore Derek Carr. So I don't know if the guy learned. I don't think he did. So I'm going to say Gino. Gino has a good matchup. Carr has a good matchup. But the Raiders run so much the last 2 games, they might not be passing. And it might be, Houston might not be able to push us into a shootout. I think if anything, Houston's have to score to keep up. So Gino, 55 to 45%. Delroy, Wandale, or Thornton. Thornton did well with Bailey Zappi. I don't know what we're going to get if Mac Jones plays, and I think they might run the ball a lot. Whereas I think Wandale Robinson has a good matchup. Shaquille Griffin's out, which helps. And so I think I'm going to say Wandale Robinson, 60 to 40% on this one. Foxborough News, Gesicki or Otten, 16-man half PPR. So Gesicki, it's weird with his targets. He has some weeks where all of a sudden it just works out, and then other weeks he's really not a part of the game plan because ultimately in that system they don't like their tight ends to be receivers, but they've used them in the slot. So it's been working. Otten did really well when there was no Cam Brate. I think 6 catches for almost 50 yards, and I think he's filtered right into the offense, and I think he's a thing. I think Otten is way safer. Gesicki has upside because Gesicki, we've seen him score 2 touchdowns. We've seen it. But I think Otten is much safer, and I think he's going to get catches. And he could be used in the red zone as well. I'm going to say Otten. All right, Hooligan on Insta, Njoku or Kenny. I'm going to say Njoku. I think Kenyon Drake's the 3rd guy in his backfield. The last 2 times he and Justice Hill were both available, Drake was inactive. So that's the way I'm going to roll on that one. Kevon, Pitts or Njoku. You know what? Pitts has only run, I want to say it was 25 routes roughly on his last 60 snaps. He's not running routes. So that's my problem. So I am going to say Njoku there because Njoku's getting like 7 targets a game. He's like the second option in their passing game, and they're playing Baltimore, who hasn't been great. All right, looks like we got Josh here. The Lions are going to start running a lot more, and first coming out the bye. And against Dallas, that's the way to attack them. You want to attack Dallas on the ground. So that is the way to go after them. Got an Insta Chargers fan 555. Would I take Pickens over Sutton now that Pickett's playing? I also would do that because I think Sauce Gardner is probably going to be on Sutton a lot. And I don't know that Rippon is going to be able to take advantage of that. So I would probably lean toward Pickens in that matchup, believe that or not, but true. Ken, Algier or Kareem Hunt? They've used so many bodies to block in Atlanta, and it's been very strong, and Algier's going to get his double-digit touches, so I think he has a better floor than Hunt. I don't know how much of a ceiling Algier has, and ultimately that scares me a little bit, and Hunt hasn't had ceiling games, but they're playing a team this week in Baltimore that hasn't been great defensively. I think Algier's a safe play, and he gives you a strong output, but if you've got to swing for the fence for some reason, then Hunt would be the guy that has a little more upside, but Algier has a higher floor, I believe, this week. Patrick, Pickens, Gallup, and Samuel and PPR pick 2. So I do think it's a Pickens game because they are playing Miami. Now, Miami blitzes a lot, but I think that Pittsburgh has been decent enough in pass pro to give Pickett a little time. It's the cornerbacks that Pickens can exploit, and I think this is one of the first good matchups he's had. So I think he is your ceiling play here. And it's hard to call Samuel a floor play because I haven't seen him with Heineke yet, but you would think that he gets 5 catches here, but he disappointed us last week. Samuel may be a guy that they used heavily early, and it's not working so much. Gallup is tough because Dallas could run the ball a lot, and they may ease Dak in. So of the 3, I think Pickens is probably your best shot. And got a couple Insta questions here. Let's see here. We've got Anaro. All right. Duvernay or Bateman? Definitely Bateman. No Denzel Ward. Bateman's healthy. He should be, when they pass, a focal point with Mark Andrews. And I would go Curtis Samuel over Duvernay because Duvernay caught a couple teams off guard early, but I noticed as time went on, and especially without Bateman back, I don't think he's catching anybody off guard here. And so I'm going to say that Samuel's enough of an integrated part of the offense, even with Heineke, that I'm thinking he gets 5 catches. And then Duvernay has just such a low floor that makes me nervous. And then Wyatt, McNeil, Brian Robinson, Pacheco, or Foreman. I think of the 3, Robinson has the best floor and an easy match against Green Bay. It doesn't stop the run. Pacheco's your swing for defense guy because he has speed. I think he's in for pass blocking mostly, but I think he gets 10 to 12 touches and he could break a long one. Foreman's interesting because if they trail, but see, we don't know for sure if they're going to use him on passing downs, and that's why I can't right now say to play him, because if I knew they'd use him on passing downs, he would probably be used heavily in the second half, but that could be Hubbard or even Raheed Blackshear. So right now, I have to see a week with that configuration of how the coaching staff sees them. So again, Robinson safe, Pacheco's your boom bust guy. G Money, Goff or Rodgers? I'm worried about Goff against the Dallas pass rush. And we saw New England a different way of approaching it, but they shut him out. And I think Dallas, with their outside corners and their pass rush, make it real difficult for Goff. I think Rodgers has a good floor. Most weeks it's 2 touchdowns. Most weeks it's 220 to 250. I think you take that floor and you roll with it. If that pass rush is going on Goff, Goff's going to curl into a ball. I don't like that for him. And then your other one, pick 2. I'm going to go ETN and Lazard. Teams are compressing the field on Jacksonville's passing game because they know they have no explosive wide receivers. And since that happened, Kirk's production has gone down. ETN's a player on the trend up, and Lazard's been strong 4 weeks in a row. Emilito, you're welcome. By the way, guys, if anybody's there, you can if you're on YouTube, please hit the like button, subscribe button. That'd be appreciated greatly. If you want a free couple days behind the RotoWire payroll with all our great content, you don't even need a credit card. Just an email address, rotowire.com/try. Give us a shot. Love to have you come over and see our stuff. Answer that one already. Let's see. I'm caught up on Insta. All right. Brian Robinson or Mostert? Well, Mostert doesn't have a good matchup against Pittsburgh. Robinson, I still say Coach Rivera after the last game said he wanted to get Gibson more involved. So I think Mostert's going to get more touches. I think Mostert is ultimately a better player, and he does have the potential. He hasn't been bringing big plays. He has the potential to do that. I'm going to say Mostert 60 to 40. Stream Giants or Raiders D? I'll say the Raiders. Max Crosby coming off a bye, fresh. Maybe Chandler Jones got a little juice with the break too. The pass rush, give me them over that. That's the way I'll look at that one. CMC, Pacheco, or Dubs. You know what? If the options were more compelling, I would consider sitting CMC. Even if he gets 7 to 10 touches, he's CMC, right? He's Superman, right? He could break an 80-yard touchdown. He can play in the red zone. The other guys, we don't know what their floor is, right? Dubs can be pretty low. Pacheco, they talked about his pass blocking, so therefore he's starting this week because I think they want to keep Nick Bosa off of Patrick Mahomes. I think he gets 10 carries, which I don't know if it's any more than CMC. So I'm going to say CMC. Jerry Brett on Insta, Bateman or Gallup in a standard. I'm going to go with Bateman. I think with Denzel Ward out for Cleveland, Bateman coming back, hopefully healthy, with Gallup, I think that Dallas could run the ball at will on Detroit. I think they might ease Dak back in without a high volume passing game. And I think Bateman has a similar ceiling to Gallup, but I think his floor is higher. J Red, you got Alec Pierce, Gerald Everett, or Dillon. Pierce has been money, right? I mean, even though he's seeing less snaps than Paris Campbell, and it's not even close, he's been productive every week. Dillon hasn't scored in 4 weeks, but and aside from last week, he typically gets about 15 carries. I think Dillon is like the safest of them. I think Pierce, and he did it on a late play last week. He didn't have anything going like till the end of the game. So I think we're going to say Dillon's your safe play, but I think that the boom bust might be Alec Pierce. I like Everett this week with Donald Parham out, but I think your other options are a little more compelling, and Everett's kind of come down to earth a little bit, and he's inconsistent. All right, Kurt, PPR, Sutton, Elliott, or Kurt? I got to go Elliott. Detroit's horrible against the run. Zeke's getting like 75 yards a week. Kirk, I said earlier, the defense are compressing against them because they have no downfield element to the game. So Kirk's getting crowded out in the middle. Sutton may deal with Sauce Gardner a lot, and I don't know that Ripken could get him the ball in that scenario. I'm going to say Elliott. Henry, Edmonds, you could. I mean, Edmonds hasn't shown us anything. And I'd like to say that if Mostert missed time, Edmonds would step in and do well, but I don't know. Maybe the coaches, maybe he's not picked up their system. That might be the problem. So Pacheco, I think, will be game to game. Again, I think he's in for pass pro today. Andy Reid kind of said that. So, but I think Pacheco, if he does keep that role, playing in that offense, that's a lot of value. So I would say you could do that because Edmonds hasn't shown us anything. All right, Bobby, not great choice for every two. Pacheco, Gordon, or Foreman. I would probably go Pacheco. He gets 10 to 12 carries, I think, for sure. Tough matchup. Gordon, we don't know. The coach says he's back. Really? He's starting? Really? You benched him last week on national TV. I don't trust anything Nate Hackett says. Maybe I'm wrong. Foreman, love Foreman. We don't know what his role is. We don't know what the coaching staff there is going to do. So right now, I think we take the chance on Pacheco. And, if Foreman ends up being the pass catcher and they trail, it's a great role. But if they make Hubbard the pass catcher, that's problematic, right? So I would say Pacheco this week. Kurt, I think I answered that one. I said Elliott, Crazio, Stevens, and Pacheco, Williams. I'm going to go Williams 1. Dallas isn't that tough on the ground. Stevenson number 2 because Damian Harris is back. And, even though the Bears don't rank to be a great run defense at all, they're terrible, actually. It's stupid. They show up on primetime games. I don't know why. I don't know how. The Bears always show up against the run on primetime games, no matter how crappy their defense is. So it's stupid. My analysis is stupid on that one. I get it. But I'm going to say Williams ahead of Stevenson, then Pacheco 3 because, again, I think San Francisco is a tough draw, and I think he gets 10 to 12 carries. All right, JKM, non-PPR, starting Pittman. Should you play Pierce or go? I'd go Bateman because Denzel Ward's out. I do think he gets some work, and they need to get their passing game on track here. I'm going to take one last Insta question to close off Insta. Let me take 2 here, and then I'll get back and I'll close out on the. I'll do rapid fire. All right, ZMA, DJ Moore, Robinson, Nico Collins, Mooney, Renfro. PPR, you need 1. So apparently Renfro is going to play, and I think he has the potential to see the most targets of this group. So I'm going to with the Darren Waller out. So I'm going to go with Renfro there, and Anthony Wilson or Dobbs. I think Dobbs is going to get 2 deep shots today. I think he'll catch one of them. Washington's not good against the pass, so I'm going to go with Wilson there. All right, those on Insta, thanks. I'm going to close out Insta right now, and I'm going to finish up on – all right, close that. Let's finish up on – here. I'm going to have to rapid fire this. I got a bunch, so I'm going to kind of rapid fire these, and got to get ready for the game day. All right, we got Cheddarhead, Deontay Johnson, Alec Pierce, Cooper, or Harris. You know what? Cooper and Johnson should see strong target volume, and I like Johnson's matchup this week, especially against Miami. Cooper, he's been getting done most weeks, and I think we have to assume he's going to continue to get the role in the offense. I am not worried about Baltimore's defense. I know their corners, the names are all, but Cooper's getting over the middle a lot, and I think that continues. Alec Pierce, I like him. He's performing. He just doesn't get enough snaps to compete with the other 2 just yet. And then Damian Harris is splitting with Stevenson, and I know the Bears aren't good against the run, but I think I'm going to take the 2 guys that are going to be – and I think they both are featured, Cooper and Deontay, in their target share this week. Michael, Drop Khalil Herbert to pick up tight end for Kelsey or take the 0. If Cade Otton's out there, I would do that because Otton can get you enough points. But if you're having one of these guys that may not get you any points, be careful. But I do think you could drop Herbert, and you probably could pick him up next week. My guess is you'd be able to pick him up next week. All right, Jason, pick him. So I think he gets 10 to 12 carries. There's always a chance a guy that fast could break a big run. Otherwise, I put him on about 45 yards. I think Edwards-Helaire is involved. San Francisco is a very good run defense. I know they're missing the 2 defensive tackles, but their linebackers are the linchpin there. So he's worth it if you need him, depending on your other options. I think he's a good – and again, he could break a long run. If he does that, he cashes in. Uncle Santini, Hunt, Dillon, Gordon, Bateman, pick 3. All right, of these, I'm going to start Bateman for sure. And then Dillon probably for the floor. And then my last one's going to be this. I'm going to do Hunt for a decent floor, but I think Mooney could get a downfield shot this game because I think New England's going to stop the run, and they're not going to be focusing on the pass. So Mooney's your boom bust is your third one. Hunt is your safer one. All right. Eric Pacheco or Mostert. So I think Mostert is safer. He hasn't broken the long runs yet. It's a tougher matchup. They both have really tough matchups. I think Mostert's role in the offense is more secure than Pacheco's. Mostert's not going to share a lot, where I think Pacheco is going to share more than we think. So I'm going to go with Mostert there. Uncle Santini, DJ Moore, Sutton, Dobbs, Pickens. I think of this group this week, Pickens has the upside of the group. Dobbs has it too. I think Pickens has it against Miami, who struggle against receivers. And for that fact, DJ Moore, we can't trust the quarterback, and and Sutton's going to probably see Sauce Gardner a lot, and he has another quarterback. So I'm going to say Pickens there. Waddle right now is expected to play, but it's a night game, so I wish I had more clarity, but we don't have clarity, and that's very unfortunate because we all want clarity, and we do not have that on him right now. So problematic, but I don't have any better answer. They expect him to play. He's expected to play, and that's as far as we can go. Pick 2 running backs, Drake, Dillon, or Harris. I think Drake's the number 3 in the backfield. Justice Hill was called out by John Harbaugh as being like a star running back the last couple of times he played before he got hurt. So I'm going to sit Drake. Kirk or Stevenson, PPR. I'm going to say Stevenson there. The field's getting compressed on the Jaguars, and Kirk's not getting room to operate. Jason, do you still keep this out of a red zone potential flex options? So if you could bench Jeff Wilson, I would bench him for Alec Pierce for floor. If you want to bench him for an upside play, I think Dub's going to get a couple deep shots. I don't know if he catches them. So Pierce would be your safe switch. I would use that. I would keep CMC in. I would still keep CMC in because even on limited touches, he's CMC. Dillon, because I don't know what Chuba Hubbard's role is going to be until we see it in the game. Dillon, we know, is a secure role. Robinson or Pacheco. Robinson is safer. I would go with Robinson, but if you need a guy, Pacheco could always break a long run with his speed. So I think he has more upside, but he has a lower floor. So Robinson's safe. If you want to go swing for defense, then you go Pacheco. Gino or Tua. I think I answered for somebody else earlier. I'm going to go Tua here. I think Tua has a great matchup, and Gino, they may run more. Bateman or Foreman. Bateman, Denzel Ward's out for Cleveland, so I like him there. Oh, you're very welcome, Dr. Roberto. Appreciate you being here. Would I trade CEH and get Gus Edwards? I would not. I think that's going to be a muddled mess in the backfield. And then if Dobbins does come back in 4 to 6 weeks when you're in the fantasy playoffs, now we're back to that again. I think CEH is going to – I think this is game plan specific. They needed a pass protector this week, and I think that's what they needed. Waddle or Bateman. So Bateman's going to be safer because we know he's healthy and he's going to play, whereas Waddle is supposed to play, but we're not sure if he'll have a setback or what his deal is. Waddle has supreme upside. So if you need 25 points out of your receiver, Waddle has a chance of getting that. Bateman's not going to get that. But Bateman is much safer and he has a reasonable ceiling. So I say because Waddle has the night game, I think that's the way we go. Ramsey, running back. Taylor so Indy looked like they fixed some of their offensive line issues last week. So I'm going to say right now, Taylor in a tough matchup. Mike Williams, I worry he'll see a little bit of Tariq Woolen. I think when he doesn't, he'll be fine. I think Taylor the line looked better last week. So I'm gonna roll with the superstar there. And Williams disappears too often. And then you got Myers or Ayuk. Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you. Ayuk should be in a shootout. He should see targets. Myers has a higher floor. Myers doesn't have much of a ceiling, I don't think, because I don't know how much New England has to throw this week. Myers your floor play, but I think Ayuk has a higher ceiling and a lower floor. So if you want safe, it's Myers. If you want to risk some lower scoring for a possible bigger game, it'd be Ayuk. SN, need 2 running backs in the flex. All right, a lot of names here. Wow. 1, 2, 3. How many do you need? You need 7 and a 10. Oh, what 3 do I? I'm going to rapid fire through this one. So I am going to go Montgomery for volume, Cooks for hopeful volume coming out of the bye. For the third one, I'm going to say Stevenson if you want the floor play, Dubs if you want to swing for the fence, because I think he gets a couple deep passes thrown his way. I tried to put that up there. Forrest, would I trade CEH? I think no, I don't think I would. I think that this 1 week game plan specific Pacheco thing. And if Dobbins is really coming back in 4 to 6 weeks, he's back for the fantasy playoffs. So I think CEH ends up with a role. So I would not do that. Drake, London, Wandale, Deontay. Deontay for sure. He should have great volume here. I think that the Bengals get a lead here, and Drake London's going to see a little more work than he's been. So I'm going to go Deontay and Drake. Brian Robinson, Hubbard, or Drake, Wandale. I'm worried about Josh Reynolds having outside corners of Dallas on in the pass rush. So I'm going to say, and DJ Moore, I can't trust him at all. So I'm going to say Wandale for your wide receiver, and I'm going to say Brian Robinson on your flex. Definitely comfortable starting 2 over Matty Ice. They cleared him to play. At this point, they can't take a chance that he's not healthy. So, yeah, definitely 100%. Claypool or MVS? That's a tough one, huh? MVS didn't do anything last week, but he's getting targets. And I think in this matchup, the area of the field where he works is going to be open. They're both risky. Claypool's coming off the big game. I think MVS is going to have enough catches to be reliable this week. Claypool, I just have no idea what to expect week to week. It could be nothing. It could be something. So I think MVS is getting targets. And I think ultimately for Mahomes, I'm going to trust that. I do like Justice Hill. I think Justice Hill gets you roughly 60 to 70 yards today. So I like Justice Hill. Waddle or Bateman. I think I answered someone earlier. Bateman's safer because we know he's playing. Waddle plays tonight. But if you want to shoot for the moon upside, you got to go with Waddle and risk him being injured or inactive or hurt in game. So you got to be careful there. Answer that one already. Waller for Pacheco. Drop Waller for Pacheco and start over Gus. Pacheco would be a start over those two. Would hate to drop Waller because of after the bye, they figured things out. So if they figured out and Waller comes back and plays well, and anyway has the hamstring injury. So I would say I would start Gus Edwards and call it a day. Need 2, London, Wanda. I think I answered this one. Man, I feel like I answered these already. Drake and Deontay. Scott, I have to answer these quick because I got to get out. We are going to go. We're sitting Drake there. Marianne, I think Jamal Williams ultimately, he saw less snaps than Craig Reynolds in the last game, but with Dallas being a matchup you can attack on the ground, I think Brian Robinson's going to share more work than we think. I think Jamal Williams will be relevant for all 4 quarters. Robinson, if they fall behind, could be relegated out. I'm going to say Jamal Williams 60 to 40%. Brandon, 2 running backs with Delvin on bye. ETN for sure. And I'm going with Pollard as well because Dallas is horrible. Ramsey, I know I answered that one already. Maybe I answered these already, huh? Let me see. I answered that one for sure. Ayuk for ceiling, Myers for floor. Montgomery and that one over B. Rob. Answer that one already. Answer that one already. CMC over Mostert. Even if he gets limited touches, I've got to trust CMC because Mostert has a tough matchup here. Going Tua over Rodgers. Love the matchup here. Rodgers has just been he's been fine. 2 touchdowns and 220 to 250, but Tua has real upside here. No, I answered that one already. Herbert or Mahomes? I'm going Mahomes. Herbert's targets kind of worry me. Brian, thanks, man. Yes, thank you for smashing the like button. Appreciate it. Scott, Reynolds or Judy? Reynolds faces those Dallas outside corners, and the Dallas pass rush is no joke. I don't know how much time to be thrown downfield. I'm going to say Jerry Judy. And I got to move out of here, so I'm making these last two questions. I'm done. Jay, Gallup will have a higher floor. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you, man. Gallup has a higher floor here, but Dubs has a much higher ceiling. I don't know how much Dallas is going to throw today. Dubs going to get a couple deep shots if he catches one, he cashes in. If you want to save 8 points, it's Gallup. If you want to go 4 to 18, and I think Dubs is your play there. And then the last one I'm answering, London or Bateman. I got to go Bateman because they're going to have to throw. Denzel Ward is out, and that's the big deal. Everybody, thank you. Appreciate you. If you didn't hit the like button, please do, and subscribe. Everybody, have best of luck in week 7, and we will talk soon.